Welcome to Mayor's Moments. I'm Jim Larkin, and again, joining me is Willowbrook Mayor Rich Bondi. How we doing?
Doing good.
Got a few renovations in this facility, as you can see.
Well, I always feel that the council chamber is the image of your council chamber is the image of your city, and so we did a lot of work in here. Nothing extensive. Painted, took down some old wallpaper, and then we our carpenter from the Lands and Buildings Department took off this fabric that they had on this table and put in the slat board and stained it, and so it was it's all mostly labor, and so we didn't it didn't cost us a lot of money. The back slat board used to be this bulletin board,
right? Slide panel
where if you showed a video, well, they didn't have videos in 1976, but you showed a movie or a slideshow, it would reverse itself and be frontwards in this room, which was state-of-the-art technology in 1976, but was never used. And so I had that torn out and had the slat board put in here, and then the company that does our entrance signs did the logo behind us. And then you can see the new directors' tables. They're actually training tables because I wanted them narrow. And so the 6 directors sit there. There's 2 other directors that sit up here. That's the law director sits on one side of the mayor, and the finance director sits on the other to kind of keep the mayor in line, I guess.
Yeah.
And then
should have the police on one side, maybe the fire on the other.
They're in front with tasers. And then I replaced the carpeting. I had all the former mayor's pictures framed and matted, as you can see. And there's 18. I had 18 predecessors. I'm number 18. So there's 17 predecessors, and if you count, there's a couple missing, and that's because in the early 1900s or 1920s, we don't have pictures of a couple of them, and some of them didn't serve a full term. So we're missing 2 of them. So all the mayor's pictures are there, and the room just is a lot classier. The carpeting that we had in here was over 17 years old, and these chairs that we're sitting in now are going to go as soon as the budget's passed. They'll be replaced also with chairs, new chairs, and so the room will last another 17, 18 years this way. So
looks very nice. Did a beautiful job.
Yeah, it just looks real classy, and it's much more comfortable being here. We put in a new podium for the public portion, so when people want to speak at council meetings, they come up and there's a microphone, they state their name and their address, and they speak to council that way. Almost all cities do that.
Right.
We've never done it, and I just thought it was a good idea to do it that way. So, and the flags are under light now, because I was always concerned they were in a dark corner.
Yeah.
And so it turned out pretty good, and we're very pleased with it. We have the city historical flag posted, and there isn't anybody on the planet that knows why that's a historical flag. So, but people are afraid to ask, I guess, because they think, well, I should know that answer, but nobody knows. I think it was probably flown. Oh, this one's got fringe on it, so it wasn't flown over the Capitol.
It's an indoor type flag.
It is, so I had no idea why that's a historical flag, but in the 37, 38 years I've attended council meetings, it's always been in here someplace, so we just left it in here.
So basically, if somebody knows, give you a call. You never know.
That's true. That's true.
They have some other photographs over here on this wall.
Yeah, that's just different areas of the city. And
did beautiful framing on them.
Well, those are all from Pat Catan's, and those are all stock frames. There's nothing extravagant about those things. They had to cut the matting down for me to fit in those frames, but they look fine. And we got one more picture, I think, to put up there, 1 or 2 more, and then we're pretty much done. If I put much more, it's going to look kind of cheap.
Yeah.
In the back of the room, we have an art gallery. We're going to we have senior citizen artwork there. We're going to change that around, and I'm going to bring in some artwork. The principal for North High is going to get me some artwork that Willowbrook kids have done at North, and we're gonna change the artwork every so often. Put up some from Willowbrook Middle, put up some from Royalview. And so the back becomes an art gallery. We used to have tables on the other side under the mayor's pictures where some of the directors would sit, and it just took up a lot of space. And the agendas and all the materials for council meetings were there for the public. And instead, I took a shelf from behind the wall
Mm-hmm.
in the back of the room where it was supposed to be like a cloakroom, and we took the shelf out and then mounted it below. Took the pipe out that had the coat hangers,
Mm-hmm.
and then that became the shelf area for the agendas and so on. So it worked out really well. And so it's a very functional, very comfortable room, and it didn't cost us very much money because the most expensive thing was the new carpeting.
Yeah.
And so everything else was pretty reasonable.
That's real.
So, and most of it's labor, paint and wood, and the stain is this is pine wood, so it's not that expensive.
Mhm.
And the work was all done by our own guys. So
Beautiful
looking
job
good.
with
Yep.
molding curves and everything. It's beautiful.
Yep. And actually, we also took the base molding out of here. I had them knock it off,
Mm-hmm.
and we went with chair molding or not chair molding, with carpet molding.
Yeah.
It just looks a lot cleaner. And every time someone would back a chair up and the bottom of the chair would hit the molding, it would chip it. So we were painting it twice a year, and I thought, this is stupid. So instead, we just did the carpet mold, and it looks a lot more modern, a lot cleaner, crisper. So,
Okay, the big story we're looking at is how's your health?
I still have good days and bad days. I don't want to go through this 6 months again. Yeah, I look back at all the chemo and the treatments and so on, and I was in a lot worse shape than I ever thought I was. But it's 6 months of going through horrible times, but 6 months in a lifetime is nothing. Like one of our cleaning guys, young guy, said to me the other day, he's doing how's your chemo? And I said, well, I'm done with chemo. I'm on radiation now. And he says, but you're still here. And he's absolutely right. How philosophical can you be? And he's right on the market. And I was feeling better and better and better. And then the radiation kicked in, and you get the fatigue again. But the radiation is a walk in the park compared to chemotherapy. But we're all going to get something, and there's a lot of people in this community that have things a lot worse than me. So when people say, well, we're praying for you, I always tell them, pray for the other people that have it worse than I do. And some we know of, some we don't, and keep them in your prayers and your thoughts as well. So
One thing you find with an illness like this, it gives you an opportunity to kind of decide what's important in your life, and from this point on, you're going to appreciate a lot more, and hopefully you stay with that, because there's a tendency after a year, so I have to go back to normal and mess up just like you did before.
Yeah,
You appreciate a lot more. Sunny days, things like that.
all of a sudden, stray cats and elephants are not high on my priority list.
Oh, okay.
You're absolutely right, and I think that you start realizing how important your family is, how important your faith is, and things like that. And I think that's important.
Maybe that's why we get these things.
It's God's wake-up call.
Yeah, you were getting out of line, so straight that sucker right out.
I know, and I keep making lists for him for things that need to
Ooh.
have him do.
Oh.
And he doesn't.
Does it work if you put it in the collection with a $100 bill?
No, it still doesn't work. I
You
keep
tried that, huh?
I remind him that I was elected to this job. He just always was, but I think was trumps elected. So
yeah, he's
I
kind
don't have a lot of influence upstairs.
Kind of had the job for a while too.
That's right. That's right. So
Okay, revenue projections.
well, the last year at this time, I was telling our residents, and in my State of the City report said that 2016 is going to be a difficult year. That's where we're going to be done with our carryover. And the carryover is basically the city's savings account. It's what you don't spend. And it turned out at the end of this year, at the end of 2015, our carryover went up. Now, there's a reason for that, and that is that we sold the lakefront property that we own next to the towers to WODA, that's building Willow Beach Terrace, the senior apartment complex. In addition to that, we had a police investigation that ended up netting almost $200,000, and the court finally said, we went to court and said, we've advertised in papers, we've advertised in local law enforcement publications, and nobody's come forward. And so after a couple of years, the court said that money's yours. So that went into the general fund. So we put over $500,000 into the general fund. So we went from 840 some thousand to 1.2 million. So it looks good, but it's one-shot revenue. Oh, yeah. It's not sustainable. Next year, we're going to still be deficit spending. Next year being 2016, I should say. We're going to deficit spend again. And as that continues, that carryover goes down. Now, and I've said this before, people may say, well, then why don't you spend just what you take in? Mm-hmm. And cities don't do that. You know, Wickliffe's in the same situation. We're in, Willoughby Hills is, I'm not sure where Willoughby is. I know that Eastlake's already spent through their carryover. And they're already they're already over the cliff. The problem with that is as soon as you do that, you've got to cut services. You know, 80-some% of our general fund is people. So we would be laying people off. When you lay people off, you cut services. And then people say, well, you know, cities always lay off police and fire first. Well, we don't lay off fire because our firefighters are all part-time. But what will happen is there would be cuts in the police department if we just lived on the revenue that we take in. And so no city wants to do that. So you wait till you absolutely have to. Mm-hmm. You don't do it early. Now, you and I in our household budgets wouldn't do that. If we could see where we're going to be very, I don't want to say broke, but close to broke, sure, a year or two down the line, we would cut back expenses now. But you're not laying off your wife and yeah, cutting food and so on. Whereas here we would be in a city, you're cutting services, the residents. So you don't do it until you absolutely have to. And how do you sit down with the unions and to the families that I feel some type of responsibility for and say, we're going to lay you off when you're looking at a $1.1 million carryover? It's almost, I don't want to say immoral, but how do you justify that? And so you wait until there's no money left, and then you do it. Now that's counterintuitive to you and I in a private budget or in our household budget, but it makes all the sense in the world in a municipal environment because we are in the business of providing services, and then those services will be cut. And so you don't do it until you have to.
You don't really have the luxury. Like in a home, you can turn around and say, well, I'm not going to eat out as much. I'm not going to have vacations. And you basically have the essentials to start with. Because over the years, you've cut a lot of the so-called fluff out of the budgets, people-wise and that. You don't, yeah, some of these things you don't provide that you use.
I don't think you're going to see any city, at least all the ones that I know in Lake County, that have a lot of excess expenditures in their budget.
Not anymore.
Not absolutely. You're down to bare bones in every city because we're all in the same situation where our revenue is not keeping up with our expenses. And the biggest expense, well, is personnel, and of the personnel, it is
medical.
Yeah, your health care. You know, we're scared where that's going, and really? We spend, little old Willowick spends over $1 million in health care on our employees annually. $1 million a year in health care.
And you compare that to what the salaries are, it's like, oh.
Yeah. And you know, you look at, like we're in negotiations, and like we have pointed out to people that a 1% pay increase for every employee in the city will cost us roughly $65,000. It's figured at $60,000. Sure. In a 3-year negotiated agreement, a 3-year contract, as we keep telling people, that's $60,000 the first year. Can we afford that? Yes. Next year, it's $120,000. You get a 0 the second year. That, or 1 and 1 rather. You go 1% this year is $60,000. Next year, that is $120,000. Next year, that's $250,000.
Right.
So your 1 and 1 is now costing you $250,000. We are projected to have a balance of anywhere between 0, which won't happen. It'll probably be about $500,000, and we're going to eat half of it up with just those raises if we gave it 1%. And that's why we're having the negotiations is ongoing and talking so that people understand the exact situation that we're in. Mm-hmm. And again, every city in Lake County is in the same situation. So
about every business is, you know.
Well, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all bad news. Our revenue for income tax has gone up slightly, not a heck of a lot, but it's moving in the right direction. And the reason for that is that there's more younger families moving in and senior citizens moving out, and so they're paying city income tax. Secondly, a lot of the foreclosed homes are off the market now and have families living in them, and then we're seeing income tax revenue there. And then the other area where we're seeing some increases, and this will be temporary, only for a couple years. The finance director really budgets this really low. I know it's going to be higher, but that's my guess. And that is the delinquent property taxes. Those are mostly foreclosures. And as soon as the foreclosure is off the market, somebody buys that foreclosed house, the taxing agencies get their money first. So the Willoughby East Lake Schools and the City of Willowick and MRDD and Lakeland and all, they'll get their money off the top. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing that now with these foreclosed homes coming off the market. We had a couple $100,000 more than we expected in the delinquent taxes. So we're kind of happy about that. Mm-hmm. My guess is we'll see that next year, 2016, I should say, at the end of this year. And then that'll start dropping off because the foreclosed homes will be off the market then. So
hopefully,
but that'll convert to just regular income tax, a regular property tax,
and probably the income tax too.
Yes. The bad news is that the it's not bad news. It's kind of neither. But we have no increases in property tax income. The county said that the value of homes in Westlake County will remain the same. Now that's a triennium, that's 3 years. That's not going to change. And so for the next 3 years, we'll have no increases in income tax, property taxes. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of disconcerting to us. We were hoping it would go up 1 or 2% because the houses are selling for more for the most part.
Some of us like it though.
Yes, I mean, as a homeowner, you and I like it. As someone who runs the city, I don't like it. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And in Willowick, and in yours, also living in Eastlake, your property taxes are going to go up. And what's going to happen is the people are going to get their property tax bills in 2016, see that their property taxes went up, and they're going to want to know what the city's doing with their money.
That's right. What are you doing?
That's right. Please stop asking me that. We have not raised your taxes. We have not asked you for a tax increase in 20 years. We live at what we get. And that's why we end up cutting, we end up trying to do more with less. But they go to the ballot, and like in November, they said yes to the Willoughby East Lake Schools for a big tax increase.
Real big.
And then they said yes to Lakeland for another tax increase. Yep. And then they complain about the high taxes. Well, you said yes. And don't get me wrong, I think both of those issues are important, and they bring great value to this community. Lakeland's an outstanding community college, and they do a lot there. And they contribute a lot to the economy in Lake County, clearly, providing educational opportunities for young people. And then the Willoughby East Lake Schools, I mean, we're going to be seeing some remodeling at Royal View and Willock Middle, and we're really happy about that. Our high school, North, is going to be rebuilt, a whole new high school. That's exciting for our kids that are going to be going there. My grandchildren will go to the new North, and so that's a good thing for the community. I don't fault them for that. I voted yes on those issues, but understand that the consequent result of that is you're going to have higher taxes.
Well, the good news is that it was for what, 35 years?
Yeah.
We won't be paying the whole thing.
Right.
We won't be here.
Oh.
That's a good sign for us older people.
35 years, I'll be 100. So yeah.
Only
I
100?
might be. Yeah, I'll be
You
100.
might be here.
I could be.
Uh-huh. You'll be able to vote for the renewal.
I'll still be saying it. Next year's going to be really bad in the budget. We're broke. We're broke.
Oh, man.
We also saw, and this is good news too, that 181 new families purchased homes in the city, and purchased, not rental. When you read Facebook, and there's just a massive misinformation on there, it's just I just want to tear people's heads off. But I just got to the point where I ignore it. But somebody pointed out, yeah, but these are all rental homes. No, they're not. I mean, right now it doesn't pay for you to have a rental home. If you do have a rental home, because I have one, and I fixed it up, and I advertised it just on Craigslist, and had 25, 30 people call me about that house because they want to move here. They like the schools and so on. So I was able to pick who I thought were the absolute best renters, and I did. It's
How's it working out?
really good. A couple they have all their antiques in there, and it's really kind of cool when you go inside of it. I was very impressed.
Good.
And so the money I put into it is kind of paid off. I'm not going to make any money on it. And I'm lucky to break even, but
You make your money on your tax write-offs.
well, kind of.
Get another accountant. Go ahead.
Not as much as I'd like, but so we're seeing less rental houses because it's more advantageous for people to sell them, because the real estate agents have reported over and over that there are a shortage of homes available for sale, and so the value of those homes goes up.
Sure.
And so and Willowick is the hottest market in Lake County.
Good.
And again, it's because of our schools. It's because of, and you talk about high taxes and paying taxes to Willow East Lake schools, but the value of your home is going up also, because the aggregate value of the community goes up. And our parks and recreation. Those are the two big reasons families move into a community.
You have them.
You would think it'd be safety. It isn't. It's recreation, or it's education first and recreation second. But if you think about that from a sociological point of view, if you have good schools and you have good parks and recreation, that's a community that cares about itself and invests in itself. They will have a good police department and fire department almost automatically. It's going to come along with the other two. So it's unlikely, and probably not even probable, that you would have great schools, great parks and recreation, and high crime and a lack of safety. That doesn't happen. So the other thing I see on Facebook is, well, crime's increasing in Willowick. As soon as there's somebody robs a bank in Lake County, somebody talks about the high crime. If you look at our statistics, that's not the case at all. And I put them right in my annual report so that people can see it, and they always miss it. And because you see all the negatives, that the number of offenses has declined from the year before. Some of them have increased, but most of them haven't. The big increase always is amazing to me. It's all these suspicious persons. That's people calling in saying there's some strange person walking down my street. And that's a good thing. I mean, we want people to do that. So
my wife cues in on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing, and we want people to do. Call the police if you have concerns. So, we're certainly moving in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Now, people will say, one person posted on Facebook that, the mayor and the administration talks about how the value of homes goes up, but a home on my street just went for $30,000, and what's that all about? And they're comparing to what it was like in 2009. And, well, that's not the case. That house that went for $30,000 was probably a foreclosed home that was a mess. You think about it, a $30,000 house, it sits on a lot.
It's worth $30,000.
So the house is worth nothing.
That's right.
So tear it down and build a new house, and you'll
money ahead, really.
You'll be money ahead. Exactly, and that's what you're seeing happening in some areas, that they are either rehabbing the houses and selling them, because there's a big market for rehab, and those houses will go to young families in the future also.
Well, a lot of them need it. I mean, I grew up in a home similar to what you have here up in South Euclid. One bathroom on the first floor,
Right.
period. And now, you go to these new homes and there's at least 2 on the first floor, and God knows how many upstairs. We're just so spoiled,
We are. I mean, we have 4 bathrooms in my house.
Yeah.
And the whole house is 3,800 square feet, so there's
200 rolls of
bathrooms
toilet
all over the
paper.
place. But getting my sons to clean theirs upstairs is always. Well, there's one upstairs and one down by the home theater that I'm constantly on them to get those things clean. I refuse, but
See, if they were on the first floor, you could have the street cleaner going.
oh yeah. I mean, I'll do the ones on the first floor, the guest bathroom and the suite next to my room. But the rest of them now they're going to do that. So.
Got to learn someday, huh?
Yep.
Okay, get into the budget.
Yeah, the budget is we're just finishing the budget, and as I said, it shows a $1.1 million carryover. So one of the things that I had done some concentration on is capital, and the reason for that is that's the first thing that we cut out of a budget is capital. But we're getting to the point where we have a couple trucks that shouldn't be on the road in the service department, so I've got to do some investments over there. We have parking lots that are going to fall into disrepair. The City Hall's parking lot and the Manry parking lot are the 2 that are most concerned. City Hall's worse than Manry. And so what we're looking at is a number of capital items. Some of them are equipment, some of them are projects, but in the service department, we're going to buy a new sewer jet. Now, a sewer jet is what you put into the manholes to blow out the street or to blow out your laterals. We will do your laterals and we'll blow them out for you if your basement's backing up because your laterals are clogged, and that's usually 99% of the time. That's what the problem is. It's not the mains, it's usually the laterals. That machine, you want to take a guess on how much that machine is?
600,000.
400,000.
Ah, you got a deal.
$400,000.
That's all expensive.
Now you can say, well, why don't you share it with Eastlake? Well, Eastlake's got one, but the problem is, if 2 cities bought 1 truck, yeah, we'd save money, except they're going to need it at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And that's the problem. You're going to need it in the spring. You're going to need it in the fall. You're going to need it after storms. And we cannot. I couldn't postpone it for another year, because if I did, and the current sewer jet that's over 20 years old goes down,
Not that many years now.
and we have a blockage, we can't get to it.
No.
And so that's crucial to have that equipment there. When people talk about it, you got to work on the sewers. Well, there's almost $500,000 on sewers right there in 1 truck. It's amazing. We have to buy another pickup truck for the sewer crew, and then I have to buy a dump truck. I've postponed this for a couple of years for lands, buildings, and parks. It's to the point where they can't continue doing what they're doing with an old pickup truck that was purchased back about 20 years ago. They're just not going. Those trucks are out on the road every day during the week, and sometimes on weekends. The parks ones are on the weekends too, and they have the old lettering on the side, the script, the City of Willock, and that's how you know that it was not bought in my administration. Mine has the logo on the side, and so I've been here 12 years, and so those trucks are 12 to 15 years old, and they're just we got to get them off the road. There's a couple that are just not safe. The fire departments asked for a lot of chase cars and so on, and I took those out of the budget. We will buy a command vehicle. That one's old. Command vehicle's got all the records and the equipment. It's a big SUV. We're actually getting a smaller one, and saving some money that way. But it'll last about 10 years. And it isn't on the road like a police car is, but it's still essential that we have the command vehicle. The same thing, the request from the fire department was for some. We have a new fire truck, the Quint, and we have a new squad that we just purchased. The Quint was, I think, about $700,000, and the a rescue squad runs about $250,000. So between the two, we spent almost $1 million, and we can't. We're in good shape with emergency equipment. It's the chase vehicles that are old, but I pulled those out of the budget, and instead we're going to put in new garage doors in the front. Those garage doors are just about shot. My worry is a 911 call, and you can't get the door open. And
big doors.
We can't afford that. And so we're going to put new doors out there. They will be almost all glass, but they'll be insulated glass. That's the newest thing. And the reason for that is our residents like to see their fire trucks. I know that sounds kind of silly, but in any city, in any community, you usually want to put glass doors on your fire department because the people feel good seeing their trucks. And
psychological.
Yeah, it really is, and they're no more expensive than doing those corrugated things that look like they're from a factory. And so we're probably gonna do all glass. We haven't picked out what we're gonna do yet, but it's something that's just necessary for the building. Yeah. That comes out of a levy. That doesn't come out of the general fund. We fund that through the police and fire capital levy. So we kind of protect the general fund for that. Same thing with the police car, the police department there. I've approved a new unmarked SUV, and then a new black and white SUV. And people have said, and I've seen this on Facebook, why do they spend all those money on those black and white SUVs? Because it's silly to have those Ford Interceptors in this kind of a climate. We had a snowstorm where the only police vehicle that would work was the one SUV that we had a few years ago. So we just went to all SUVs. And you're seeing it in all cities. Every city's going to SUVs.
The thing is, you've got so much computer stuff on the front end of the vehicle.
That's right.
That you can't really drive a conventional sedan, shall we say.
You cannot.
With all that garbage in it. I mean,
you can't fit anybody in there. And so you have the MDTs, those are the computers that sit there. You've got two rifles in there. You know, one is the automatic, and the other is just a single shot. And then it sounds morbid, but you've got to be prepared for whatever you have to go into with some type of a shooter, and you've got to be ready.
Another thing you run into with the quote sedans, everybody's driving something that's big. You can't see anything.
Yeah.
You've really got to get up into even what you're talking about with what the Ford Explorers. Mm-hmm. They're not really as high as some of the other ones, but it gives you a bit of a shot.
Actually, what I was talking about, the Interceptors, that's a special Ford police car that is designed just for city use. Mm-hmm. And they stopped making them because the gas tank's in the back, and that was a concern if there was an accident. But also in a winter climate like we have in northern Ohio, it just doesn't make any sense to have those. If you're responding to an emergency, especially in a snowstorm, you need a four-wheel drive SUV. So the other thing in costing them out, the police department was able to show that they're not much more expensive. They're almost the same as the Interceptors were.
Yeah.
So we
because they're less special to start with.
Right. And also remember, our police cars are on the road 24/7. Now we got a lot of police cars. We only have 3 patrols at any one given time. But we've got a detective bureau that has to have cars. We've got unmarked cars, and we've got extra cars in case that we have to send a 4th car out for some emergency reason, or as we had an accident this year where we totaled one of the Interceptors, and so we had to put one of the SUVs on the road to replace it, and then until we had to get the insurance, and the insurance will pay for the partial cost of a new car. So that's you can't run a police department without police cars. This isn't Mayberry anymore where they don't even have radios in the car. Where Andy and Barney would just yell at each other, I guess. But
simpler time.
That's right. And we're also doing a couple capital projects at Manry in the Recreation Department. Manry, the activity center was never designed to house the Recreation Department. The Recreation Department was supposed to be here at City Hall, where it always was. we moved it over there only because that's where all the action is.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to have people come up and register for day camp and swimming and classes when the classes are out there, and have them come up here. So we're going to probably shut down the recreation director's office up here, and we're busting through into a storeroom, a big storeroom, and we're putting another office and a little conference room area, so they'll have more workspace. And we're going to remodel the outside where there's 3 windows rather than just one when we are taking registrations and so on. It's real busy in the spring. I mean, you go over there in May and June, it's crazy. So we're going to be doing that over there. And the parking lot is in bad shape. I think it's not as bad as this parking lot. This one's going to have to be resurfaced. That one, I think we can get by. Our roads foreman thinks he can patch it, and then we're going to
seal it?
No, before we seal it, we're going to crack seal it first.
Yeah.
And after we crack seal it, then we're going to seal coat it and then stripe it. We should get another 2-3 years out of that by doing it on the cheap this year. But it isn't as bad as this parking lot. It doesn't have potholes all over the place because we concentrate on roads as opposed to our parking lots. Well, it gets to the point where you got to do something. This will be a gravel parking lot if we don't do something with it really quick.
So people don't realize if you don't stay with that crack sealing and that, you're going to lose your base, and it's cost you a fortune to replace that parking lot.
Oh, absolutely.
We had that with St. John Vianney, and trying to convince people that you really have to do it.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to cost you a ton of money.
Yeah, it's pay me now or pay me more later. So that's what's going to happen. So.
Real good. So you got some goals, huh? Those anyhow.
Hard to believe, isn't it? When we do the budget workshop for city council, we bring in all the directors, and each of them talks about their budget. It's called the mayor's budget at that point. It starts the process starts in about October, where I meet with all the directors and chiefs, and I outline some of what I want to do and where I want to take the city in the coming year, and then they build those kind of things into their budget, and then they have their own goals for their own departments and their own needs, and they build that into their budget as well. And then they sit down with me, and that's where we start cutting some things out, because it usually ends up a wish list.
Yeah.
And a budget is not a wish list, it's a budget. So we have to cut back to make sure that the budget's going to match the revenue that's going to back that up. And so we talk things through back and forth. And for example, with the fire chief, I said, what do you feel is more important, garage doors or 2 more chase vehicles? And he said, I think I can survive another year with the older chase vehicles.
Yeah, because you can't get out of the garage.
That's right. You can't get the old ones out of the garage. It doesn't make any difference. So we're going to that was the decision that Chief Wasserpank and I made to pull out those from the budget. I mean, they were asking for $600,000-$700,000 worth of equipment that the budget only brings in like $285,000 a year.
A little short, huh?
It's a little short. So, when we're done with that process, then we end up with a budget that's ready to be reviewed by the finance department and myself. And then we sometimes go back to the directors and say, this can't be supported by this levy or this line item or so on. And then it gets put into a big binder, and then each councilman gets a binder, and then there's 2 budgets in there. First of all is the mayor's budget, and then there is the revenue budget. It's 2 separate things. That one is money in and one's going to be projected money out. And we review both of those together. And then the tab sections at the back are all the different departments that back up whatever they wanted and why I did what I did in the different line items. And then it's put in legislative form, and it's no longer called the mayor's budget. It still is in many respects, but it's the city budget. And then it's usually put on 3 readings, and by law it has to be passed by April 1st. Otherwise, the city can make no expenditures out of the budget because it doesn't exist. and we've never had a problem with that. It's a process that takes a long time. It takes October, November, December, January, February, March. It takes 6 months, but it's one of the most important things we do because it's gonna run the city for a year.
And that is the mayor's responsibility.
Right, right. City council, the mayor proposes, council disposes.
Right.
So it's the mayor's responsibility to bring a budget to them that's workable. And so the process takes such a long time and it's so much discussion, and council is almost always on the same page because they know exactly what we're doing.
You keep them informed as you go along.
Right.
It's not like all of a sudden you show up at the end of April or end of March or something and say,
Here's
here's
my
what
budget.
it is. No.
Right. And then we have 4 meetings during the year quarterly with council, and although they're finance committee meetings, we generally do it as council of the whole, so all 7 of them are there, and then we review where we're at. How's the budget working? And because the budget is a tool, is it working for us? Where is it not working, and so on? And then we look at revenue, and are the revenue projections right where we thought they would be? Is the budget right where we thought it should be? As a matter of fact, the reports they'll get is there's a column for percentages where what percent of the budget that line item was spent up at that point. So you look at it, and for example, when the budget is passed and you look at it in April, you go down and you think, wow, there's some areas that haven't spent anything. They're really saving money. And then when you check the line items, swimming pool chemicals, swimming pool salaries and wages, right. And then when you get to the summer, road salt and so on. Wow, they're saving money. Well, it's seasonal, so you will blow through over $100,000 in swimming pool expenditures in the matter of 2 months, and so those percentages you gotta understand that some of it's seasonal, but it gives you a sense of how much we're spending in the budget areas, so council is always on the same page, and we're very transparent. And the budget's online. People can look it up. It's hard to understand it because there's, as I said, there's 2 budgets, revenue and
well, it's done in Bean Counter East.
Pardon me?
Bean Counter East.
Oh, that's right.
That's what we used to tell the people in engineering. That's why you don't understand it. You don't speak Bean Counter East.
Right. Yeah. Just there's so many nuances. For example, the fire department's in 2 different areas, and it's exactly the same. One's a mirror image of the other. Why don't you just put them together? Well, one is out of the general fund, and the other is out of the
special levies,
the EMS levy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Since what we do over there is primarily EMS.
Yeah.
And because we don't have very many fires, we have 6 to 8 runs a day, ambulance runs, emergency runs. So that budget area is separate, but it mirrors the other. They're exactly the same. So if you wanted to know what the salaries and wages were, you've got to look at both parts. You've got to flip back to the other part and then add them both together. That's the total expense of the fire department. So those nuances are in there. The service department is probably the most complex because only the secretary, the director, and the Parks, Recreation, and Public Lands comes out of the general fund. Roads comes out of something, another budget area, and the sewer crew comes out of the sewer revenue fund. And a lot of cities budget their capital out of their general fund and their salaries and wages, and then just do repairs out of that. We can't do that. We don't have the wherewithal to be able to do that. So sewer revenue funds sewers, and it's got $2 million sitting there, which seems like a lot of money if it's you and I, but when the engineer is done with his sewer report, if we did everything he wanted us to do in there,
what, 4 million?
$35
million.
$35 million. And then that's, again, it's you got to educate the people when they say, you have to repair these sewers.
Yeah.
Okay, will that be cash or charge? Because 6,300 homes have to pay for that. How much do you want to spend, and what do you want to do? And then you got to be efficient. Where if you're budgeting money to repair sewers and it's going to cost the people more money in the sewer revenue fund or wherever, or a tax levy or wherever, they have to also understand if you have another 5 inches of rain in 90 minutes, Euclid and Willowick and Wickliffe and Menor and every city out, we don't have sewer systems that can handle that.
No.
If we did, nobody could afford them. And so you're backing up again. So Euclid's doing millions of dollars of work in there. If you've seen around 222nd,
Yeah.
it looks like a big giant hole in the ground.
It's like the one in Brattonall there.
Exactly. It is a big giant hole in the ground. That's a storage facility. So Willowick's solid waste comes down Lakeshore Boulevard and it'll sit in there. So will Wycliffe's, so will Euclid's. And so it stores it in there during a storm so that it isn't backing up.
Into your homes. Yeah.
So it's going to help Willowick and Wickliffe and Euclid in terms of illicit discharge. That's poop going in a lake. And also,
Technical terms.
that's exactly what it is. The EPA and the health department goes nuts, and we've had some issues with them as well. And then there's but if there's a backup, when there's a heavy storm and the storm's leaking into the sanitary, that's going to hold a lot of that volume there, and hold it back, and that's
Keep it out of the basements.
And it'll keep a lot of basements drier
That is
longer.
not a good thing in the basement.
No, it's not a sure fix, but it
helps.
It helps, and so we're looking at a lot of different things that we can do also. Ultimately, we'd like to do the same thing, but you once you do that, what, are you going to buy up a lot of homes and dig a big hole? I mean, you obviously can't do that here, but we're looking at a lot of different options on different things we can do as far as piping and so on, and seeing what we can do.
Just pray for no rain.
Yes. Well, so far, we've not had basement backup, and this will be the third summer, and
Here
I
goes.
probably shouldn't say that, but
Here goes. Here goes.
so as you talk about sewer backup, I'm backing up here. So myself.
So we got a couple changes in your personnel, huh?
Well, we're looking for a new service director. And honestly, Willowick's a good place to work, and so we had 18 applicants, and so we have the luxury of narrowing it down to the top 5 outstanding candidates, and those are the ones that we interviewed. And I say we because I had some of the people in the service department interview with me, because I want them part of the decision. Even though it's my decision, I want their input.
It's a strange concept.
It's great, but I mean, you hardly ever see it. Normally the employees don't have anything to do with who's
Not in
gonna
the
be
municipal
boss.
world.
Really?
It's done in higher ed and it's done in education, and that's my background.
Oh.
And so I want their input also.
Sure, the buy-in, it works smoother.
Exactly, because they're going to have to work for this guy. So we're looking for somebody who has experience. So I'm looking for somebody who has been a service director, or somebody who has had leadership in a city department. And so a lot of the candidates did not, and so those are eliminated almost immediately. So it's nice to have the wherewithal to be able to choose some outstanding candidates. Some of the other goals, we're going to be doing some revisioning on what a senior center is. What I want to do over there is start adding services for residents that don't use the center. That if we look at senior centers as just line dancing and ceramics and bingo in the future, we're not going to be meeting needs. We want to continue doing that, don't get me wrong, but I want to look at what are we doing to help seniors stay in their homes and age in place, such as home repairs. That's a big need in Lake County. They did an exhaustive study of senior services, and that was number 1. We're already doing that with Hearts and Hammers, so we want to take a look at that and intertwine that with the senior center. I'm talking with the Council on Aging of doing a satellite office here, so that you provide services to our residents, and we can make it regional for that matter, and bring along Wickliffe and Eastlake. And it would be in the basement of the community center, and they would meet with the people in the library upstairs. but providing services such as health screenings, and we do some of that already, but we want to make sure that we are reaching out to those seniors that are not coming to our center. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not in good health. Maybe they need nursing services. Now, the city's not going to provide that, but these other agencies may know where they can get those kind of services.
So you're going to be a resource, basically.
Right, and we need to go to them. Is my argument. The other thing that I've been thrown out to the other mayors in Westlake County is, should we start looking at adult daycare? If you have your mother living with you and she's in her 90s and she's not in good health and you're working and she can't be home alone, should we provide a place and a program for them? Now, we don't have the facilities, but maybe that's where we can combine resources with other cities and look at that. The only adult daycare I know of is at Borromeo, and I think it's still there.
Yes.
But I don't, there's none in any of the cities that I know of, and maybe that's one of the things we need to look at. Not sure on that one yet, but I think it's something I need to have put on the table to talk about to see if that's a need. And we have all the data now from the entire county, and we can look at that data because they did an exhaustive study, so that was a good thing. So we're looking at some changes in our senior center.
Yeah, because, if you're like yourself, you're basically saying, oh, something happened. Well, you've had some catastrophic stuff here, and
right.
There's nobody else to do all these things. I mean, you do have the children, but normally the children would be out working, and what are you going to do with mama all day long or dad,
I can only hope that they would leave the nest and go out and get careers.
What do you want, a miracle? Gee, Christmas.
It's a different generation. But but you're absolutely right, that there's some people that have no family.
Yeah.
We have people that when they get a 911 call, the police report back they're hoarding and the conditions in the house are terrible. Well, legally you're allowed to do that. If you want to live that way, that's your choice. This is America. But I'd like to be able to have the wherewithal that somebody that in these new senior services that we're doing can at least meet with them and see what their needs are and see if they'll avail themselves to services.
Sure.
So I think it's just important.
I mean, each generation looks at things totally different. I mean, we thought our parents were weird, and our kids know we are weird now. So I mean, things change.
That's a good thing.
For us.
That's right.
Talk to your kids about that and see what happens.
That's right. We're doing some restructuring in our building department. I want to make sure that we're cost effective and yet efficient, which sounds like what any mayor would say, but
sure.
But now's the time to do some hard study over there because we are we're looking for a what's called an RBO, a residential building officer, a chief residential building officer, because Joe Dominic, who's retiring, did both.
Okay.
And I don't want, I just want to hire a service director to run the service department, and I want somebody else running the building department. But instead of hiring a full-time person, the county said, we'll give you some of those services. We'll do your electrical, we'll do a lot of they already do the commercial for us. Mm-hmm. And they do that for some other cities, and now that they've expanded out there, they've met with me and they're willing to do that for us. So I want to take a look at turning over some of that to the county. So I want to make sure that we're as efficient as possible. And the building department brings in revenue. It doesn't break even, but it brings in revenue from fees and so on. And the county can keep those. We don't have a problem with that, but I just want to make sure that the services that we provide here are efficient. For example, we are one of the only cities that has a vacant property coordinator, where he goes out every day and looks for vacant property, and you have to register with the city, and there's a fee to register, and then we inspect your property. Now, this is the first year was 2015. In the ordinance that we designed, you can be exempt the first year if your property's for sale.
Okay.
So everybody said, I'm selling my property. Okay. Now it's 2016. The fee goes up the second year, and we need to see your property, because we don't want vacant property looking like hell, whether it's commercial or whether it's residential. And we have those situations, and so Dale will go over, and he's part-time. He works in the mornings and he doesn't work on Fridays, but he'll drive around the city and look for vacant properties. And you wonder, well, how can he find it? How can he find vacant properties? Well, it's easier than you think. All he has to do is drive up and down streets after it snows and look for those properties that after the snow sits there for 2 days have no tire tracks in the driveway. Then he marks that address down and he contacts the owner of that house and wants to know, number one, are you living there? If not, then we have a second program, and that's non-owner occupied, where we inspect your property as well. A lot of people don't like it because they think the city's on them all the time.
Sure.
Now, I have a rental property, and the city's on me. Every time Scene goes over there, I get busted for something I never thought about. I bought a home for my son and his wife and their 5 kids, and they, one of the things, I had to have it inspected, I had to pay $300. The dryer vent the vents were screwed in, and Scene said, you can't do that. You have to take those screws out and you have to duct tape it. And I said, why? What difference would that make? Because lint sticks on the screws that are inside and builds up on the inside. I would never have thought of that. So it's a good thing for a program. And so we're inspecting properties that have absentee landlords, and we're inspecting properties that are vacant to protect our housing values. Now, it's a never-ending battle. We're going after them constantly. I just got a phone call yesterday from a resident that thinks that they're being harassed, but their house was condemned. They removed 60% of the front base of their house. Well, you can't live there anymore. You have no heat in your house. You got to get out of there. And so she's claiming that she's being harassed, but the problem is it's owner unoccupied or non-owner occupied, and you're not maintaining it. And so that's not fair to the others 6,299 homeowners in this community.
That's the thing. I mean, you don't like living next to one of those properties.
That's
it
right.
doesn't do your property any good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get complaints about them all the time. And it's a never-ending battle. We only have a part-time person. We could probably have 5 full-time people going on after them. But it's a step in the right direction. So that's an area that brings in some revenue. It doesn't break even, but it brings in some revenue. And also provides what I think is a very important service for the community. I think Painesville is the only other community in Lake County that has that. There may be others now. And then the non-owner occupied is huge because we have 200 rental homes. They're probably more than that, but we're upping the fine if we catch you. And again, we're going to catch you during a snowfall. You better be over there driving a car up and down your driveway because we're going to find you. And the other thing is, we just put out a notice. I put a little note in the Courier. If you think there's somebody that has a rental home on your street and they haven't reported us, give us a call. And invariably, they'll be calling the building department. And so we want to make sure that we maintain those properties. So. The other good news is that we will be celebrating, as one of my goals, the opening of Willow Beach. That'll be opened probably, Willow Beach Terrace. That'll be opened by about, they're thinking October of this year.
I just went past it on the way here. That's
right. Look at the work they've done. The elevator went up first, and then now they're framing the building in. It's only 3 stories. It's 50 apartments. 46 are going to be 1 bedroom and 44 2-bedroom, I think. It'll be sold out.
Well, you've talked about the 2 we're going to get, right? We've talked about that before, that Lakeview.
And I'm just taking Finnegan, our golden retriever, and my kids are going to have to live someplace
That's
else.
right.
I could say that because they wouldn't be caught dead watching me on TV, so I can say what I want.
No way.
About them.
The dog might watch though.
That's right. I'm going to be establishing a historical commission of volunteers. We're going to start putting historical pictures in this building of old Willowick back years ago, and I'm going to do a special program with you, and we're just going to talk about just the history.
Before. It's amazing.
The Willow Beach is named after the amusement park Willow Beach, and we actually found a framed and matted photograph of the roller coaster at Willow Beach. It's really pretty cool. It's the only photograph of that roller coaster that exists.
Huh.
And they used to drive their cars on it. You would drive your car on a roller coaster. Doesn't sound too safe to me, but that was the late 1800s, so I guess that was their way of it.
Cars were different.
And we can talk about some of the legends of Willow Beach and how it relates to the Griffith disaster and the bones that you used to find in the park and so on. So
that'll be not for children to watch, right? They'll be out there looking for the bones.
And I think after 150 years, they're not there. We're working with the fifth graders at Royal View as the mayor's legacy challenge to them, and we are designing a memorial to canine dogs, service dogs for police departments. It's going to be at our lakefront park because we figured I thought it belonged better there. It's going to have a granite base and a cement, a German Shepherd on the top of it. The kids are raising money for it. It's only going to be about $1,800. They're going to probably raise a third. I asked some agencies such as Metro Parks and the Lake County Captains and the Willoughby Eagles to see if they could kick in a few $100s so we can get this thing off the ground. And then when a police dog passes away, his name, his city, and his years of service will be put on there.
Oh.
So it'd be kind of a neat kind of a thing, especially now that that dog was killed out on the far west side. And there's a real interest in dogs. It's like the perfect timing to be able to do this. And the kids are all excited because, as I tell them, when we plant that tree at Manry in your honor, that's something that's going to be there forever. You can bring your children to show that that was your project when you were in fifth grade in 2016. And then you could show them the memorial because it'll say that the fifth graders at Royal View in Willow did this back in 2016, so it's kind of exciting. And then my other goal is we have a couple minor goals, but the other big one is the Vine Street lighting. That just drives me crazy driving down that street at night, and we're trying to work with CEI. They're trying to make us the demonstration city, the first city in their area to have LED lighting on a main street like that. What I want to do is put the lighting on the south side. I get south and north mixed up on that street. The lake side of that street has no lights on it, but the poles are there and so are the lines. So we want to put those lights back on there, but I want them to be LED. And then we have to coordinate with the decorative lights on the other side that we're going to leave, because the decorative lights are on photoelectric cells, and they will get the message that it's daytime and they'll turn off. And so we have to redo how we turn the lights on and off. And CEI, it would come out of another levy, that we have a street lighting levy that was passed in the 1950s. That would be, that would cover the lighting. It just bothers me that the lighting there, it's decorative lighting, but it's so dark there, and I want to brighten that up. So it's kind of what we're thinking of doing.
Got a police officer retirement?
We do. We're looking for a new service director. We are looking for new firefighters, and we're getting a lot of applicants for that. It gets kind of tough in our fire department because we're going to have about 60 part-time firefighters. Now, we're a full-time service department, full-time equipment, and everything's full-time over there, 24/7. But our personnel are part-time. Now that saves the city almost $2 million a year.
Fringe benefits.
$1.8 million a year in salaries alone. Back years ago, it was when firefighters full-time were not making as much as they are now, it was real advantageous for them to work for a part-time fire department as well. Now that gets tougher and tougher. And so we have to keep adding and adding and adding. Adding personnel because they sometimes they don't stay with us for a long time, and that's disconcerting. And the reason, again, if you're making $85,000 on a base pay, and then you get overtime as well in another city, or even $75,000 and then overtime in your you're shot up to 80, 85,000. You don't need to work part-time anymore in many cases, especially if you have a spouse that's working too. And so it gets increasingly difficult to operate a part-time fire department like we do, with a full-time fire department with part-time personnel. And we got great guys over there. I mean, they are just as professional and just as compassionate as great guys and one woman, as any other city.
Build yourself out.
Yeah. The problem is that you could be over there on a shift with 5 other guys, and then the next shift you work, it's 5 different guys. You don't even know who they are. So that's one of the downsides too. But on the other hand, can we afford to spend about another $1.5 million to $2 million on a full-time fire department, because you wouldn't get any increased services? They would just be full-time employees. We can't afford that right now, and so we try to do the best we can with what we have over there. But again, you're going to have the same services, the same safety. They're going to be at your house in 3 minutes, and when you call 911, the police will be there probably in 1 minute, and then the fire department will be there in 3. So our residents get excellent services from our police and fire, but it gets increasingly difficult to. I mean, they don't know what I have to go through in my office to be able to shift things and to make sure we maintain those services. So, and then we're also, Sergeant Ice is retiring. We gave her a special proclamation. We did it at the DARE graduation. She's not retiring until the summer. But we did it early because she's been the DARE officer for 22 years.
Oh, boy. So
she's gotten to know all the kids over there. And so she was... we honored her in front of all the parents and all the kids. It was really nice. We're sorry to see her go. She's the only woman police officer. She was our first woman police officer, and she stood her ground with the guys over there and was able to show that women can do what men can do. And so she's been a real role model. And it'll be interesting to see if we get any applicants that are women again. The last time we did testing for the police department, we had 99 applicants. 99 people took the test. We were hiring 1 officer. So, you get the cream of the crop.
They must stay a while too.
Yeah, they'll stay the whole time. But again, in Wilwick, and some people don't know this, but if people who work here really were honest and they, when they talk, and they are, but it's a good place to work. I mean, the city treats its employees fairly well, and I'm just not blowing my own horn since I'm ultimately responsible for all that. But the city's always treated their employees as best as we possibly can, and I think they understand that. And so it's a good place to work, whether you're in the service department, the fire department, police department, recreation department. It's a good place to work, so people want to work here. Excuse me. So that's a good thing. So. The only thing I have to be real careful on is where we're at with the budget next year, and we can't add any new people replacing here. If in the long run, if there were any cutbacks, and if it happened in the police department, that new person that would be hired would be the first one to go. And I want to do whatever I can to make sure that we don't do that, but that you have to operate within the budget that you're given.
That's for sure.
You can't make money up. So that's kind of where we're at. Where things are, we got good news, bad news, as we always do, and
that's good.
Glad
to see you're back and kicking, and it's a long battle. And
I actually never left.
Well. You kind of spent a little time in medical facilities, is what I meant.
Yeah, I had to. There were days that I would leave here at about 3 in the afternoon. Now I'm part-time. I don't even have to be here all day if I don't want to, but I end up putting in 30, 35 hours a week, and the mayor really has to. The job has changed over the last 12 years, but. There were times I would go home at 3 o'clock because I was just so fatigued and so just I could barely drive. It got so bad, and then I would just lay in the great room and watch TV, and then you have to watch Dr. Phil and Ellen I thought, oh my God, watching Dr. Phil's enough to send me into depression. and Ellen's just way too happy for me. So you just lay there thinking, oh God, this is worse watching TV. So I'll go back to work. So,
Well, glad you're able to do it.
well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and make it a great day.